Hey kids, it's time for another episode of Comically Speaking with SPAZ. This episode is going to be aimed directly at the people who used to collect comics in, let's say, the 60s, 70s, maybe even the 80s, that felt that they grew out of it, got married, moved on, but they've sort of had that burning passion inside of them, just waiting to reconnect with comic books, but are sort of maybe a little overwhelmed by what's going on right now in local comic shops. Because you walk in, and if you're looking for classic Spider-Man or classic Superman, you're faced with tons of variations. And like I said, it's very overwhelming if you don't know where to start. But maybe you don't want to read the new Amazing Spider-Man series. Maybe you don't want to investigate something new and interesting like The Wrong Earth. Maybe what you want to do is just reconnect with the old comics that you actually read when you were a kid. Now, one thing is you can go in there and there'll be comic boxes filled with classic back issues that you can flip through and find, and sometimes you're going to find something for $1, sometimes you're going to find something for $500. You never really know. But if that too is overwhelming, I have a couple different options for you that I'm going to quickly discuss. We're going to start with something that Marvel has started doing called the facsimile issues. And what they do is it's full price now. This is a $3.99 comic, which is on average what you're going to get for, like, you know, the major comic books. And what you're going to do is you're going to come across a facsimile edition of this first issue of Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, what is the facsimile edition or facsimile issue? It is an exact reproduction of an old classic issue. Now, not everything has facsimile editions, but you'll notice, first off, it's just beautiful. It's better paper. Remember back in the old days, it used to be newspaper, but now these are better. But what the facsimile editions do is they reprint all the ads from when the issue first came out. So including the Evel Knievel stunt cycle. Now, it's interesting to see these because you'll definitely relive your youth, because these are exact duplicates of what came out back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And the interesting thing about them is you're going to be paying $3.99 and you may go, oh lordy, that's expensive. But if you were to buy an original issue of this, it's going to set you back a heck of a lot more than that. But if $3.99 is even expensive, you may want to stick with what Marvel does. They have the series called True Believers. And a lot of the companies do. Some of the indie companies have their little dollar comic books. And what Marvel does in their True Believer series is they do reprint the comic, but it has new ads. It's not the original ads. These are not facsimile editions. These are reproductions of the original content in terms of the comic itself, but with all new ads. And these retail for $1. So you're looking at a reprint of an original comic book selling for $1. Now, since Conan has a whole new series out, or actually a few new series, they've redone a bunch of Conan, a bunch of key issues, and you can pick those up for $1 each. Captain Marvel is in the theaters now, so they are actually doing True Believers versions of a lot of the Captain Marvel key issues. And if you notice here, Captain Marvel is a man. That's right, Captain Marvel used to be a man, but not in a Bruce and Caitlyn Jenner way. This character actually passed his powers on, and there's been a few different female Captain Marvels. There's also Carol Danvers has been Miss Marvel. And these are a bunch of key issues, either released under the Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel. And it's all part of the same canon, and it's all fun. But these are all from the True Believer series, and they retail for $1. And that's a fantastic deal. Next level, after the facsimile and the True Believers and the dollar comics, you may want to check out the trade paperbacks. So let's continue with the male Captain Marvel, right there. This is the complete collection. It is a trade paperback, and it contains all the issues of Captain Marvel up until the death of Captain Marvel. Oops, spoiler alert, should have said that. Different Captain Marvel, not the one that's in the movie. But a trade paperback is a great way to get into, instead of buying a bunch of old issues, you can, buy one of these, and it's going to cost anywhere from $20 to $40 depending on the size. This one's a slightly smaller one, but it's real fun. DC has like the Golden Age of Superman and, a couple volumes plus the Silver Age. And with this Golden Age, this is volume 1, and this features all the original, the early, we're talking Action Comics number 1, 2, 3, etc. All the super early Superman from the late 30s and 40s, and there's a couple volumes of these. You can also find, Batman, The Flash, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern in those series, as well as the Bronze Age Swamp Thing. And then, for Marvel, you can find a Man-Thing. Swamp Thing, Man-Thing, a little confusing, but it's all fine and dandy. And then you can find something like The Amazing Spider-Man, and this is volume 1. This collects all the early issues of Spider-Man. And look at the colors are so vibrant and beautiful. I'm in love with those colors. That's how I fell in love with comics in the first place, is those colors. They certainly pull you out of this dark and dingy world. But if you're interested in, let's say, getting into some of the newer comics, but you've missed some of the issues and the prices keep going up, they still have trade paperbacks for more recent comics. This is the DC and Looney Tunes, and this combines all the issues from this series. There's like Batman and Elmer Fudd and all these great characters that from DC and Looney Tunes, and they're interacting in this crazy world. And what these types of trade paperbacks do is a lot of times there'll be a story arc that will last 6 or 12 issues. And what they'll do is they'll combine them into one book. Trade paperbacks is the way to go. It's cheaper than collecting old issues. So definitely check that out. And if you want to get a little more fancy than trade paperbacks, there's always going to be hardcovers too. These hardcover books will set you back a little bit more money, but they do contain a lot of great things, such as this Shazam covers 75 years of the original Captain Marvel, spanning, 75 years, I guess. And this takes them up through the years. This features a lot of the cool stories, and there's more Shazam books, there's more Superman books. I'm just trying to offer you an option if you walk into a comic book shop and you're so overwhelmed and you want to stick with what you love. Facsimile editions, trade paperbacks, go through the back issues that the stores stock. They've got thousands of them to go through, and it's all exciting, and the smell of these comic books will bring you right back to a childhood when you had bubble gum and a soda and a comic book to read, and life was perfect. But in the end, what is most important is you are supporting your local businesses, supporting your local comic shop. Buy physical product. It smells much better than your iPhone does. I can assure you that. But until the next time we meet, this has been Comically Speaking with SPAZ, and Fin Fang Foom.